education, public safety, healthcare, government, business. These and other important issues affecting our local community are identified and discussed with local and civic leaders here on Community Impact. Now with today's guest, here's our host, Jay Perlise.
Welcome to Community Impact. My guest today is the president of the Mi Young Sung Memorial Cancer Foundation. His name is Joseph Masterson, and we welcome him to Community Impact.
Thank
Joe,
you.
Great to have you, sir.
Nice to have you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Tell us about the foundation.
Yes, the foundation is a response to the death of someone who had been very close to me. And because of her death and because of the struggle that she endured through the cancer experience, we decided that we could help people by both educating them and putting a structure in place that would make it more likely for them to survive the cancer experience. And we learned these things as we went through a 3-year period of chemotherapy, radiation, good news, bad news, no news. And that's really what we're trying to do here.
So really utilizing what you learned by walking that journey and bringing that knowledge to others who may be facing the same thing.
Yeah, it's much like the learning experience, the religious learning experience. You walk through life sometimes and you begin to learn about something that you realize is a much higher power than yourself. You're willing to submit to that power, to God, and ask God to take you through the journey. And that's basically what we're trying to do, is take you through that journey, both through the mechanical things that you're going to have to use, the chemo, the doctors, the hospitals, but also as a faith-based foundation, we believe that it's important for the victim, I'll call them a victim because we always felt that way, it's important for the victim to begin to understand, if they can, what God's plan is for them. Because if God wants you to survive, if that's God's wish, you're going to survive. I don't care how bad the cancer is. I don't care what your diagnosis is. That's why when we take a person into hospice, and hospice is worthwhile, it's palliative, it takes away your pain, but we see it as life-directed, not as a preparation for dying. Because we know of many cases where victims come out of the hospice experience and they are well and able to function in their life.
What I'm getting from what you're saying is really that God is in control, and that's the final arbiter. That's where the final decision is made, not necessarily in a doctor or a medical person who gives you a dour prognosis.
Yes,
in other words, it's you and God who's in control of this.
It is, and it's really you submitting to what becomes apparent as God's will. And once you're able to do that, there is nothing that can really bring you down, because there's a lot of depression in cancer, and that's one of the worst parts of it too. But if you're living the cancer experience through God, you're going to have a much better outcome, a much better experience, and you're going to be trying to follow God's will. So that's really our approach. And we know, for example, that if your doctor, and I mentioned this to you on the radio program, that if your doctor is an atheist, and then most of the time you don't know what your doctor is. I mean, you don't say to your doctor, "Doctor, what religion are you? Do you believe in Jesus? Do you believe in God?" But if your doctor is an atheist, you are less likely to survive your cancer experience, especially if you go into hospice. The British medical journal, The Lancet, had done studies on that, and those were published, I believe, 3 or 4 months ago, if you want to try and have a reference for that. But it's absolutely true. It's true in our experience. You have to reach a point where you are submissive to Christ, to God.
What conclusion do you draw from that? If your doctor is an atheist, you're less likely to survive. I mean, obviously you have some ideas about that.
Well, yeah, I do, because if your doctor is a religious man, he is going to use that as one of the tools to get you through the cancer experience. And that's a very important tool, because it'll give you peace of mind. It'll convince you, if you can be so convinced, and if you can, you're going to be lucky, convince you that God is going to do the best thing for you, even if it means you're getting bad news. It is God's will. The doctor can help you with that. You can talk to him about things like that. He'll talk to you, hopefully, the way I do. But if you have a doctor who doesn't believe in anything, he just believes that death is the end of everything, and that there's no God to pray to. I mean, you can change God's mind. I used to think of this often, and I recall in the Bible where God is prepared to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah. He's very upset with those two cities. And he's approached, and he's asked to allow someone to try and find X amount of good men in the cities, and God says, okay, I'll change my mind. If you can do that, I'll save the two cities. God changes his mind 3 times before he finally decides that those cities are going to be destroyed. Now, that's an extreme, perhaps, example, but your cancer, if God wants that cured, you're going to be cured. And I know that you're not going to like to hear what I'm about to say now, but if God wants your death, you are not going to survive that cancer. So God is an important adjunct, an important main force in your bag of tools to deal with this cancer experience. And if your doctor, as I said before, doesn't believe in anything like that, or your hospital is completely insensitive as to whether or not you're entitled to see a religious person once or twice a week, you may be in the wrong place.
And you should be aware of that.
And you should be aware of that.
And
yes,
adjust accordingly.
that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I know from reading the material about the Mi Young Sung Memorial Cancer Foundation, one of the things that I love about your philosophy is confrontation. You even described it as almost a militant form of confrontation. Don't just take your doctor's word for it.
Yeah, and this is going to be tough, because it's very difficult to go to a doctor and he gives you, and most of the time they speak in medical language that you can't even understand.
Yeah, jargon. Yeah.
And this involves your life or death. Mia Song, for example, when she first heard she had cancer, the doctor, she was waiting for her doctor in his office. And he pops in, he says, I'll see you in about 20 minutes. He said, by the way, the test showed that you have a cancer.
Oh, great.
And then he goes out, right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine this?
I don't have to imagine. I've lived scenarios like that.
So that's something that you're going to have to deal with. You have to confront that. You have to do something that is contrary to what you've been taught since you've been a child, and that is you don't accept authority figures for everything they tell you. Question everything. Question good news. Question bad news. Question everything. You have to make sure that you get better. Take that experience, that responsibility to yourself. We believe in delegating things to different people in your family, but take the final responsibility to yourself and to God, and you will be safe. I don't know whether you'll survive. Pray you will, but you will be safe. You will be safe in that for billions of years to come, you will live in the presence of God.
Let's talk a little bit about the organization and some of the services that the organization provides.
Yes, what we try and do is set up a computer system, a computer base, so that when you come to me and you say, Joe Masterson, I have breast cancer, my questions to you will involve A, who is your doctor? B, what medication does he intend to use? And C, what hospital are you going to use? Now, I'll tell you something you don't know, and I don't think most of your listeners, your people know, and that is that 100,000 plus people die in hospitals in this country every year because of doctor and nurse and hospital negligence. Now, in a 4-year period, that's more people than died in World War II in this country. That's a tremendously significant number. That means that you have to be very careful when you get into the hospital. You have to make sure that you know the safety record, how that hospital has done in the past. And these records are often hard to come by. Our job is to say to you, you're either in the right hospital or perhaps you should consider going somewhere else. That's true for your doctor, because he may not be the right doctor for you. And it's true for the medication he's going to use. I have to tell you that there is a medical scandal, quote unquote, whereby doctors prescribe medications for which drug companies give them kickbacks. So you may not be getting the most effective medication. Mm-hmm. So you know, we can identify that. We can help you with that. We can come into the family and we can structure it in a way that we now are at war with this cancer. If you have family members who are willing to participate with you and with us, that's what we will do for you.
It's important that you do have a good support group, isn't it?
Absolutely, because if you don't have a good support group and you have to deal with all of these problems yourself, for example, Mi Song had to deal with the bills coming from the hospital. She had to deal with the doctors saying to her that there's no cure for this. She had to deal with all of this herself. She drove herself to chemotherapy, had to drive herself back from chemotherapy. This absolutely should not be happening. You can't survive cancer as well when you have to do these kinds of things. Mm. So our advice to you is to get a family structure, assign different tasks to different people, hold their feet to the fire. If they're not doing what is right, you have to move away from them too. You have to question what they're doing. It's your life. It's your survival. And that's the way you have to look at it. And we're very passionate about that.
Joe, we're going to take a break and we're going to come back and we're going to talk more. Sure. But my guest is Joseph Masterson. He's the president of the Mi Young Sung Memorial Cancer Foundation. And you are watching Community Impact, and we will be right back.
How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that publisheth salvation, that saith unto Zion, Thy God reigneth. There in Isaiah 52:7 is a beautiful statement relating to the sending forth of the gospel of salvation. As we work together in a ministry such as Family Radio, sharing the gospel wherever the Lord enables, we're being used of God to publish good tidings. We're publishing the gospel of peace and reconciliation. Your monthly love offering enables us to continue this full-time ministry daily. Will you send your kind gift to Family Radio, Oakland, California, 94621. That's Family Radio, Oakland, California, 94621. Thank you.